So the 1985 NBA All-Star Game, infamously known as the Michael Jordan freeze-out game, all kinds of context behind it. If you watched The Last Dance, if you're kind of up on the Michael Jordan, Isaiah Thomas, backstory, rivalry, etc. I met the criteria, but I wasn't selected. All that good stuff. Scoop B original. Your first in-house produced documentary piece. It's a little over 20 minutes long, really good. Just the kind of work that Brandon does with just really unpacking the history behind things, having conversations with meaningful people. Sidney Moncrief in there had me cracking up talking about how he really didn't remember. I think that was one of the things that really stood out to me from some of your conversations with people who played in that All-Star game, who were around during that time, and you asking them like, what was Michael like? Just what was he like as a rookie? What was he like in the locker room during that game? And a few people said like they just couldn't remember. A couple guys were just like, I don't remember. And some of that may have something to do with being a seasoned Saint. They've the memory may not be too sharp, but also just to me spoke to um just the idea that Michael wasn't Michael yet. And I
Sure.
think you had even said that at one point during the piece that he wasn't that yet. He wasn't that guy yet. And but give us a little more context. And I even wanted to ask you like what prompted you, what created this desire to go ahead and do this documentary and dive in on this story even more.
Well, first of all, you can check out the Scoop B Originals Presents the Freeze Out on my YouTube channel. Subscribe at Scoop B TV. We talk to anybody from Dominique Wilkins to Sidney Moncrief to Michael Ray Richardson to Isaiah Thomas to uh, John Sally and a multitude of other people. And what got me kind of interested in it was I spent some time with Dominique Wilkins in the summertime in Los Angeles, and I asked him about the freeze out, and he was kind of hesitant. Like he didn't want to answer it. And for context, he participated in the slam dunk contest, so he was involved during All Star Weekend in 1985. But he didn't play in the game, and I noticed that when I dropped the interview, it was getting crazy traffic. Like that video, I think has close to 10,000 views on my YouTube channel. That whole interview, we didn't just talk about the freeze out. We talked about KD, LeBron, a bunch of different things, and I started thinking like, if that's getting that kind of traffic, what I have enough stuff in my library to kind of pull together and enough relationships to kind of get that going. So I started putting together, and one of the first things I did, I've not said this to anybody, I'll tell you, I called Isaiah Thomas directly and asked him for his blessing to do it,
Mm,
and he gave it to me. And
mm,
he said, just make sure you pull out all the necessary stops and you ask the right people things. And I did my own research and was able to put that together and with my team and did a press run in Chicago, kind of discussing it. But um, it was interesting to me because I was born in 1985. I'll turn 40 in May,
mm,
and I wasn't even born when this game came out. So for me, 85 is a special year, not just because I was born, but because when you look at the All-Star game in and of itself and just watching the game from start to finish, um, they were playing defense in that game the whole game. And what gets lost in translation is this wasn't really about Michael. Like you saw Michael coming, you knew he was the future. You saw him coming in a Wemby or in a Wemby sort of way, or like a LeBron when he first came into the league. But that game was about Dr. J. It was about Larry Bird. They
mm,
were the LeBrons and KDs of their era at that point. You had the Celtics and 76ers rivalry back then, and those guys were in their element. And you hear a lot of different things about Isaiah and Michael, and Isaiah and I have had conversations about Michael. I've met Michael before when I was a child during my child reporting days. He was nice to me, but as far as just the actual game, Isaiah did pass the ball, but there were a lot of other guys getting the ball.
mm,
Bernard King was scoring in that game. You
mm,
had that you had Larry scoring, um you had Dr. J scoring, you had a lot of guys that had to share that basketball. And so going 2 for 9, scoring 7 points, he was drafted in '84. Talking about Michael, Hakeem Olajuwon was a rookie on the Western team, and Ralph Sampson was dominating that game.
Right.
And so,
MVP.
yeah, he was the MVP of that game. So I think there's a lot to unpack there, and I could not just discuss the game. I had to go through the Pistons Bulls rivalry and
Yeah.
all that went with that. I had to talk about even the notion of the people saying that they don't think the freeze out happened. Well, what sparked Michael and Isaiah's beef? And there's a multitude of things that people said, but I'll add that I also added how much motivation for players is an interesting thing. I tied in a conversation that I had with Shaq
Yeah.
about how he made up this whole story about David Robinson not signing something for him when he was in high school. Shaq, of course, is from Newark, New Jersey, but was an Army brat kid, so he lived in the San Antonio, Texas area for a while because of his dad's job. And he made up this whole story about David Robinson not signing something for him, and he used that as motivation when he played in the league. David, of course, a little older than Shaq. So I tap into that because I said to myself and to the viewers, well, if the freeze out didn't happen the way it was said to have happened, did Michael use that as motivation?
Right.
Isaiah being from Chicago, Michael playing for the Bulls, and I actually had a family friend who lived with Michael, a family friend of Isaiah Thomas's who was a ball boy for the Chicago Bulls, who lived with Michael his first few years in the NBA, and he kind of talked about Michael and Isaiah. It's just a lot of different perspectives and injecting my thoughts where I could and just telling a story about 20 plus minutes long. And like I said, you can check it out on YouTube.
Yeah, well, I think it was cool because that freeze out situation is one of those like it's not as big as like a
The flu
what's
game?
what's the no, I was actually thinking football, deflate gate. Like it's not
Oh
like
yeah,
it
yeah, 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 yeah.
wasn't like this huge scandal type of thing, but it was like this, it's just one of those kind of weird NBA stories. Did it happen? Did it not? And then the backdrop is just the Michael Isaiah rivalry, so it
It
adds
fit the
credence to
narrative.
it because it fit the narrative. And you did say it, and having watched it and coming away from it and hearing people who were around talk about the temperament of the game and Michael and Isaiah and like what was actually going on, it doesn't seem, it feels like this might have just been a made up thing. It could have someone, Michael himself could have been someone, maybe even Michael himself, someone could have just suggested at any point or hinted at like, yo, they're not passing me the ball or they're not passing Mike. It could have just started with that, and it just grew from there.
It's interesting. I said this on another show. I talked about Nick Anderson, most notably an Orlando Magic legend, now an ambassador with the Magic today. And back in the playoffs when Michael came back and he switched from number 45 to 23. And there was a quote that everybody ran with where basically he said, 45 was not as good as 23 or 23 is not as good as 45. I can't remember the exact quote, but Nick, I consider a friend, and I asked him about that on record. And, he said to me that quote was taken out of context. And back then, players didn't really challenge media like that. They kind of just they heard what was going on, they read what was going on, but they kind of stayed aloof. Today's player, they're challenging stuff because it's on social media. They're challenging things or they're calling fake news. That being said, um, I look at that portion of history where Nick Anderson says he didn't make a big stink about it. And then I wonder if that may have been the same case with what was being written about back in '85
Mm,
with the freeze out game. I
hmm.
wonder.
Yeah. Yeah, like in real time. I mean,
Yeah,
yeah, I mean, was it, were people picking up on things? Was it, because again, a lot of, from what I heard in the documentary, felt like people were, even Isaiah himself had said to you that he didn't even know Michael felt certain ways about him until he saw The Last Dance.
right. I think that Isaiah could have shaken Michael's hand after
That had to
the
rub like
conference
that
finals.
had to rub people the wrong way. I mean, and you had mentioned you even document and kind of timelined how uh and I think I don't know if it was Isaiah himself who had said it, but shaking hands after the game became like mandatory after
Yeah,
1991. It was
he
like
said
everyone
that
shook hands.
he said that on Mark Jackson's podcast how it seemed like the shaking hands part became a thing after Michael. And I find that interesting um, for a myriad of reasons. And the one that I'll name is that the Bulls became the first team to have won championships to publicly out former champions. And I learned from talking to other Hall of Famers where champions don't dog champions. They don't do that. I've been in rooms where, you know, Scottie Pippen has spoken about Isaiah and not a kind way. I'm cool with Scottie. I'm cool with Isaiah, but it 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 seemed a little weird to hear it because I like both of them. I never really heard Magic dog Isaiah publicly. You knew that there was something there, but it was never talked about. And I never heard Isaiah dog Magic. I never really heard LeBron dog Michael. You saw the interview he did with Pat McAfee. He still spoke glowingly about Michael. And I think those are just competitive things that stay in those rooms. I think that they're like, for example, I think LeBron had the respect of Kobe, and I've shared this before. I shared with you. I was with the Lakers the night LeBron broke Kobe's score record, and it was in Philadelphia. And um, LeBron yelled in the locker room, "Yo, we ain't going home tonight. We going home tomorrow." The Lakers were scheduled to leave that night to fly back to LA. They were on a long East Coast road trip. They played the Nets, the Knicks, the Sixers, the Wizards, I believe, on that road trip. And then they found out about Kobe's passing on the plane. Dwight Howard yelled on the plane, "Yo, Kobe died." And people trying to sleep, man, shut the hell up. But the night before they left, LeBron is on the phone with Kobe and they're exchanging pleasantries, and there are guys in the room listening to the conversation. The silence was deafening, the conversations that LeBron was having with Kobe on the phone. There was a respect that LeBron had for Kobe and vice versa. But for what LeBron said, it wasn't until LeBron became a Laker that there was that mutual respect that was there. I
Mm.
don't really know the relationship that Michael has with LeBron, as you saw on Scoopy Radio recently. Jason Williams shared that he played golf with Michael in Oakley, and Michael had shared that LeBron could play in any era. So there's obviously a respect there. So that kind of goes along the lines of what LeBron said about he and Michael will probably have a deeper conversation once LeBron retires. But to go back to that whole champion thing, I think the Bulls kind of broke script with, you know, outing, or I don't even want to say outing, just not doing what other champions did
Mm.
publicly.
Hmm. Wow. Yeah, that's good. That's fascinating stuff, man. Really cool piece. Scoop B original. You can check it out on scoopb.com and on his YouTube channel, Scoop B, unpacking the infamous 1985 Michael Jordan freeze out game. They call it the freeze out game because it was widely reported that they froze him out. They were intentionally not letting Michael get the ball and do things. And yeah, if the Last Dance is any indication, it's perfectly possible that that was just one of just another thing that was fabricated for extra motivation. I think that's totally possible.